There comes a moment in every life when the comfort of the shore begins to feel like a prison, when the boat, though familiar, becomes too small for the destiny God has placed inside you, and the voice of the Master calls, not to play it safe, not to stay in the boat, but to walk on water. This is your moment. This is your leap of faith. You were not born to float. You were born to fly. You were not fashioned in the image of the Most High, so that you could live a life of mere survival. You were not crafted by the hands of the Creator just to drift on the surface of existence, carried by the currents of circumstance. No, you were formed for more, etched with destiny, stamped with purpose, wired with eternity in your bones. Floating requires no direction, no decision, no risk. It is passive, it is safe, it is predictable, but flying, that takes faith, that takes resistance, thrust, and surrender to the wind of the Spirit. You see, eagles don't flap in panic. They stretch their wings and rise on what others run from. Storms that drive the timid into hiding become highways of ascent for those who are born to fly. You were made in the likeness of the one who walks on wind and rides the clouds. You were not made to blend in with the drifting multitudes. You were called to soar above them, to break free from the gravitational pull of fear, doubt, and what's familiar. There's something in you, a calling, a divine design, that cannot be fulfilled on the surface. It demands altitude. You don't belong in the boat of complacency. You don't belong chained to the dock of the expected. You don't belong in a life where faith is an idea and not a movement. Something in you knows this. You felt the stirring, the ache, the longing to rise. That's not restlessness. It's revelation. It's the whisper of the Spirit saying you were made for more. And when God calls you, He doesn't call you to float in safety. He calls you to step into the unknown, to trust what you can't see, to leap when it makes no sense. That is how you fly, not with wings of certainty, but with the wind of obedience beneath you. And in that place, fear becomes fuel, resistance becomes lift, and you rise, not in your strength, but in His. You were not born to float with the crowd. You were born to fly against the current, to rise in the face of gravity, to believe when others shrink back, to leap when others sit still, to become what the world has never seen. Because your God is not of this world. So stretch your wings. Don't wait for the winds to calm. Trust the one who called you, and fly. Faith begins where your foot leaves the ground. It does not begin in comfort, in clarity, or in control. It begins at the edge where logic ends, where reason fades, where the next step is invisible. It's that sacred moment when you must choose to move, not because the way is open, but because God said go. You see, anyone can walk when the ground is paved, when the path is marked, when the road is lit. But faith doesn't wait for blueprints. Faith doesn't demand explanations. Faith is the foot that moves before the path is visible, the step that obeys even when everything screams wait. It's the foot of Peter swinging over the side of the boat into a storm. See. It's Abraham leaving home without a destination. It's Joshua marching around walls with no weapon but a shout. It's Esther stepping into the throne room, knowing it could cost her everything. Faith is never passive. It is not the absence of doubt. It is movement in spite of it. Faith is not simply believing in your heart. It's proven by what your feet do next. Because as long as your foot stays planted, you remain grounded in the natural. But when your foot leaves the ground, you enter the supernatural. That is the threshold. That is the dividing line between sight and trust, between control and surrender, between the possible and the impossible. And yes, it's terrifying. Your flesh will scream for safety. Your mind will beg for guarantees. But heaven is not moved by your calculations. It is moved by your courage. God never required you to have it all figured out. He only asks for one thing: step. The waters don't part until you step in. The provision doesn't come until you leave the comfort of the familiar. The mountain doesn't move until you face it and believe. Faith is not a feeling. It's not a theology. It's an action, a risk, a refusal to wait for perfect conditions. And that foot, your foot, that you're so afraid to lift, that is the very thing heaven is watching. Because once it leaves the ground, you're no longer standing on your own strength. You're standing on the promise. You're stepping into the arms of the God who holds oceans in His hands and calls stars by name. So go, lift your foot, leave the ground, and let your faith write a story that fear never could. Your leap will cost you. Yes, it will. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The call of God is not cheap. The walk of faith isn't paved with comfort. The leap will require something from you. It will stretch you. It will demand your surrender. It will cost your reputation with men, your approval from the crowd, your grip on what's predictable and safe. It may cost you your plans, your expectations, even your timeline. It may cost you nights of wrestling, days of uncertainty, seasons of obscurity. The leap may separate you from those who were only assigned to your past, not your destiny. It may expose fears you didn't know you had. It may confront wounds you thought you buried, but it will also unlock parts of you that have been waiting in the shadows to rise. And still, I tell you this in love and in truth, as high as the cost of the leap is, the cost of staying is greater. Staying may feel safer now, but it will rob you of your future. Staying in what's comfortable may preserve your image, but it will bury your calling. Refusing to leap might allow you to avoid risk, but it will ensure you miss the miracle. What you keep, you will lose. What you surrender, you will find. Ask the Israelites who wandered for 40 years because they wouldn't leap into the promise. Ask the rich young ruler who walked away sad because he couldn't let go of what he had. Ask the disciple who said, "Let me first go bury my father." Delay is costly, fear is a thief, comfort is a liar, and compromise always leaves you with regret. You see, your purpose is not found in preservation. It is found in obedience. God doesn't bless hesitation. He blesses faith, and faith that does not move is not faith at all. Yes, the leap will cost you, but it will cost you what you were never meant to keep: the chains, the fear, the dependence on man, the false security of what's seen. In leaping, you may lose the world's applause, but you gain heaven's approval. And when you leap, when you step out, you will discover something amazing. That what you thought would destroy you is what God uses to define you. That what you feared would break you is what He uses to build you. That the void you were terrified of leaping into is already filled with His grace, His presence, His power. So count the cost, yes, but count all of it. Count what it will cost you to remain where God is no longer moving. Count what it will cost to trade destiny for safety, glory for comfort, legacy for predictability. You were not born to cling to the dock. You were born to walk on water, so leap, not because it's easy, not because it's painless, but because He is worthy, and because the risk of staying small is far greater than the cost of becoming who you were born to be. The leap is not the end, it's the beginning. It's not the conclusion of your story, it's the first step into the part that God has been preparing you for all along. The leap is not your final act of faith, it's your first breath in a new dimension. It's the moment you stop surviving and start living. The moment you stop watching others walk in purpose and start walking in your own. We often think of the leap as the climax, the dramatic scene where we finally say yes, finally take the risk, finally step into the unknown. And yes, it's dramatic. Yes, it's powerful, but it's not the end. It's the doorway. It's the entrance into the life you were created for. It's the spark, not the flame. The launch pad, not the landing. Abraham's leap didn't end with leaving Ur, it began with it. His journey of promise unfolded after his obedience. Moses' destiny didn't climax at the burning bush, it began there. David's kingship didn't conclude with killing Goliath, it started with it. Peter didn't walk on water and go back to fishing. He stepped into apostleship. The leap is the catalyst. It activates a chain reaction in the kingdom. God never calls you to leap just for the sake of jumping. He calls you to leap because there's land on the other side. There's a divine assignment waiting. There's a people to reach, a territory to claim, a testimony to write. You think you're just stepping out for yourself, but heaven knows you're stepping into an assignment that will echo for generations. And yes, the leap will shake you. It will unsettle everything that was stagnant in you. But it will also awaken the part of you that was asleep. It will birth faith. It will ignite fire. It will separate the crowd from the called, the fans from the followers. The leap will make you real. Because now your words cost something, your prayers burn hotter, your steps ring louder. But know this, the leap may be private, but the fruit will be public. What God starts in secret obedience will manifest in open glory. You'll begin to see signs of favor that you didn't earn, doors open you didn't knock on, provision show up where there was none. Not because of the leap itself, but because the leap positioned you for what He already prepared. So don't think of the leap as your final act of courage. Think of it as the birth canal of your calling. The labor pains that precede the promise. You are not leaping into the unknown. You are leaping into what heaven has known all along. You thought you were ending something, but God is just beginning, and the leap. That was only the opening line. The rest of the story is waiting to be written, with your faith as the ink and your obedience as the pen. The world is waiting for your leap. Yes, you, not someone more qualified. Not someone louder, older, younger, or better connected. You, heaven put something inside you that this generation needs. A light, a voice, a word, a fire. And that fire was not meant to be contained. It was meant to ignite. But it cannot ignite until you leap. You may think your leap is personal, private, insignificant, but it's not. The impact of your obedience reaches farther than you can see. The ripple of your faith will disturb waters in lives you've never even met. The world is groaning for the sons and daughters of God to arise. And they arise when they leap. When David stepped onto the battlefield, he wasn't just fighting Goliath. He was releasing courage into a nation that had been paralyzed by fear. When Esther risked her life before the king, she didn't just save herself, she saved a people. When Jesus climbed onto the cross, he didn't just take a leap of love, he tore the veil for all of humanity. Every leap of faith echoes into the lives of others. What if your leap is the key to someone else's breakthrough? What if your yes unlocks a chain off someone else's soul? What if your boldness becomes the mirror that shows someone what faith looks like in flesh and blood? You may be waiting on the world to change, but the world is waiting on you to move. Creation is groaning, darkness is thick, the hour is late, and while fear causes most to retreat, the Spirit is calling for a remnant to advance. To rise above the noise, to break the mold, to dare greatly, and no, you may not feel ready. Most who leap never do, but readiness was never the requirement, obedience was. God never looked for perfect vessels. He looked for willing ones. He doesn't need your credentials. He needs your yes. You keep waiting for clarity, but God is waiting for courage. Because your leap will do more than change your life. It will disturb the complacent, provoke the sleeping, inspire the watching, and release heaven on earth. Others are watching. They're watching to see if faith is real, if God is still moving, if miracles still happen. And you get to show them, so don't delay, don't shrink back. Don't bury what God breathed into you. The world doesn't need more echoes. It needs a voice, a light, a living sacrifice that says, I will leap even if my legs shake. I will go even if I don't know the whole map. I will move because God said move. This is your hour. This is your window, and yes, the world is waiting. Waiting not for your perfection, but your obedience. Not for your arrival, but your action. Not for a polished performance, but for the sound of your feet leaving the ground. Because when you leap, you don't just change your direction, you change theirs. So now the question echoes, will you leap? Will you remain chained to the safety of the familiar? Or will you throw yourself into the arms of a God who never fails? The time is now, the voice is calling, the water is waiting, and heaven is watching. Take your leap of faith, walk on the water, and never look back.